and the men of these hills who work at great peril to themselves and to their health and their very lives, these men, many of them who have been disabled by accident and affliction, have been left without work and without hope by the automation of an industry which no longer needed them. Riches still flow from these hills, but they do not benefit the vast majority of the people that live here. And I think that situation is intolerable.
Traveling on down that coal town road, listen to my rubber tires whine. Goodbye to Buckeye and White Sycamore, I'm leaving you behind. You hear the song and you hear the what Robert Kennedy had to say, and it's the truth. People have to leave out of here to get jobs. They have to go to the northern cities, and this doesn't make any sense because the wealth is here. It's not right that people have to go hundreds of miles to make a living. It drives past people's houses every day in the form of the coal and the trucks. And you know, people aren't fools. They see this happening, they know it's happening. And after a certain amount of time, they're going to get up on their hind legs and they're going to do something about equalizing the situation. When Kennedy was here, not long before he was killed, people talked to him and told him about the coal and the wealth and how they were tired of not sharing in it.
Our people are getting to be informed peoples. They know their enemy now. They don't worry so much about a Chinese farmer, a coolie in a rice paddy, or the Russian miner or peasant, or a black man in Wallace's, Alabama. They know what bugs them. It's right at our courthouse level.
Here I am. I'm 48 years old, fat and bald. I'm too old to get a job, and I'm too young to draw Social Security, and what's going to happen to me? My kids has got to eat, too. I'm a human being. They need education. I believe that the only way that we can ever ratify these wrongs is by forming an organization. Because the only thing that I've ever seen happen good to anybody in this country is by an organization.
That's exactly what people have got to do. They've got to get together so that they can draw strength from each other and support each other in the hard struggles they're going to have in front of them. Now, it's not easy. It starts off slow, and people are hard to get together, and its conditions are just bad with the roads and that sort of thing. But when people find out what the laws are, the facts are, then they know how to act. They know which direction to take. The first thing people have done in the past is to try to go through the regular channels of change in this country and have tried to petition for redress of grievances. But as events have shown the last couple of years, it hasn't worked that way. And they haven't been able to meet their needs through the normal channels. People have demonstrated at state houses, at the state capitals. They've taken themselves and people right to the capitals, to the governor, and talked to them. But they found the same thing at the state capitol that they found at the local courthouse. They found closed doors, and they found no friend there. Camping out on the governor's lawn is a pretty degrading way of getting the things that you need to survive in this world, but men have been willing to do it. The only problem with it is that it just doesn't work. You're just going to have to go back home and get people together and organize. You're going to have to travel long distances to meetings, charter buses, drive up and down the hollers, and to do all these things. But to get what you need, you're going to have to organize and take it yourself. The people who prosper from the poverty in the mountains here are not going to give that up without a fight, without a struggle. And this is what people who organize here have to address themselves to first. You can have your people together, you can have them organized, but they must be willing to stand up, to stand on the line. That this is not just a going to the meetings kind of thing, but that it's a real struggle, and it's a struggle for survival. It wasn't long ago that people in Kentucky saw this struggle and stood together on the line, put themselves on the line to fight against the rape of their land. Strip away, big D9 dozer, coming for to bury my home.
I'm getting madder as you're getting closer, coming for to bury my home. Oh, boys, we gotta organize against them strip mine men, coming for to bury our homes, and the broad form deed that always lets them win, coming for to bury our homes.
People in Pike County not long ago stood up against strip mining together and actually beat it in one community. But as they were to find out, this was just the beginning of their struggle. It wasn't long after this victory, in fact, it was just 8 days, that the operators struck back by arresting 4 of the organizers there in Pike County and charging them with sedition, of plotting to overthrow the government. A few weeks later, a federal court in Lexington, Kentucky, threw this out as unconstitutional and stated in their opinion that the arrests were politically motivated. But of course, down around the courthouse in Pikeville, the local politicians don't know much, nor do they care much about the Constitution. The 4 people who were charged with plotting to overthrow the government are Al and Margaret McShirley, and Joseph and Karen Malloy.
Ms. Malloy, describe the raids on your house.
It was about 12:30 at night. 2 cars pulled up into our driveway. One man ran on the porch and banged on the door. My husband, Joe, went to the door and asked who it was. He said it just to open the door, and he said, who is it? And they said it was the police. And after some arguments back and forth, he showed his light on his badge. And my husband opened the door to let them in which then about 3 men ran in, pushed him against the wall, and handcuffed him. Then 10 more men came in with the sheriff. The sheriff read the warrant. They split up then and through the whole house and started throwing pictures around, searching through our clothes and taking books and personal letters. And there was a present there for a friend of mine. They ripped that open and threw it around. And it was just a very terrifying thing to happen in the middle of the night. They then took Joe away about 1:30, and I went to some friends on Island Creek for safety, and we also made some calls to see if they were arresting other people, too.
Mr. Malloy, why were you arrested?
I was arrested for helping the miners and the small landowners in Pike County to organize against strip mining. I had been warned for several weeks prior to the arrest by the people like the sheriff of Pike County and by the director of the Chamber of Commerce to lay off the organizing or I would get myself into trouble. Well, I found out what kind of trouble they meant when I didn't lay off and they came and arrested me that night.
Mrs. McShirley, what has been the reaction of the people to your arrest?
Well, some people have been frightened away because I think that was the real reason that we were arrested. Our very presence in the mountains tells people what we stand for, which is that poor and working class people have to control the government themselves or they're going to be exploited. And it was this idea that was frightening to the people who are in power in Pike County. They don't want to lose their power, and they try to frighten the people. Now, some people were frightened, but some people like the idea very much.
Mr. McShirley, what about that pickup truck full of literature taken from your house?
Well, the first thing that Adolf Hitler did when he was setting up his fascist Germany was to steal the books out of people's homes. All the books that we had in our house are in any good college library, and it was the ideas in these books and the fear that the co-operators and the courthouse gangs have that we were going to let the people read these books and get the idea of how to take over the government and run it for their own welfare. That was the thing that they were afraid of.
Mr. McShirley, you have been called a communist. What have you to say about it?
Well, the word communist has lost most of its meaning for the people in the mountains and people all over this country. It's, I'd say the closest synonym for it is witch. And I think that it's important to remember that what we have here in this country is a system called, an economic system called capitalism, and which means that the factories and the coal mines are owned by very few people. And it's these people that have democracy in this country. But for the great majority of the working and poor people in this country, there is no democracy. And that's what we would like to see happen.
Mr. Malloy, are you against the war in Vietnam?
You're darn right I'm against the war in Vietnam. And so are many of the people in Appalachia against the war. They see it just the way I see it, I think, that it's a rich man's war and it's a poor man's fight, the way it's always been. The people in Vietnam are just like the people over here. They're poor, and they're workers, and they're just trying to make a living. The people that are profiting from this war are the same people that profit from our daily labors in Appalachia every day, the large banks and the large coal corporations.
Mrs. Malloy, who do you work for, and where do they get their money?
We work for the Southern Conference Educational Fund, which was started in 1938 by some people who were concerned about conditions in the South. Among them was Eleanor Roosevelt and Aubrey Williams. And our organization is trying to help black and white people in the South, poor and working class, to be able to change the system that is ruling them and depriving them of their rights as citizens. And we get our money from people all over the country who contribute $1, $5, $10 to help us do this kind of work because they also believe in it.
Mr. Malloy, you have been accused of plotting to overthrow the government and give it to the poor. Any comment?
Yes, let me correct you on one statement. We're not going to overthrow the government and give it to the poor people. The poor people are going to overthrow the government themselves and have it for their own. We're organizing and working with people to show them ways that they can run their lives and that they can have a true democracy in this country, and so that they can have something to say about where they work and how much they get paid and about where they can vote and what their vote means. Now, the difference between what we're doing and what some promising politician does is that we're working with people so that they can do it themselves, not that someone can do it for them.
Mr. McShirley, what are you trying to do? What is your program?
There are three main points to the program that we have for the mountain people. The first is we'd like to stop the killing, to stop the slow, steady killing in the mines that is done through the coal dust there, which is called black lung silicosis, pneumoconiosis. The second point is that we'd like to get the schools to start teaching the truth about the history in the mountains, the history of the black and white miners and their families fighting to set up a union here which would help them control their own counties and their own lives. And the third thing that we'd like to get across to the people and help show them how to do it is to take over their county governments and to tax the tremendous coal profits that are taken out of these mountains every day. These are the three main things: stop the killing in the mines and the killing of the children with the polluted streams and the polluted water and the starvation. That's number one. Number two is to start teaching us our true history about the Union struggles, about how these lands were stolen from the people 100 years ago for 50 cents an acre, and who owns them now and how we can get it back from them. And number three, to teach them political means of doing it, of taxing that coal that goes out of here every day. Those are the 3 points.
The last time that Appalachia South, a large number of us, will ever appeal to U.S. Democrats or Republicans, I don't know what road we'll take, but it will be a different new politics or what.
But if you don't let red baiting bust you up, and you don't let stool pigeons bust you up, and you don't let vigilantes bust you up, and you don't let race hatred bust you up, you'll win. What I mean, take it easy, but take it.